make a ready deck. All unnecessary personnel clear the flight deck and catwalk areas. Those personnel remaining get in a complete flight deck uniform. Get your helmets on, buckle, sleeves rolled down, and goggles down.
Those goggles, will you?
Hey, get them moving. Get them moving. Check the chocks, tie downs, fire bottles, tow bars, and other loose gear back to deck.
Hello, and welcome to the F-14 Tomcat radio show.
Tomcat on the ball.
How about Tomcat ball 6-0?
Roger ball.
Hello, everyone, and good evening. We're ready to get the second largest platform in naval aviation underway. The official F-14 Tomcat radio show, straight out of Grumman, Calverton, where all 712 Tomcats were built. I'm the show's producer. My name's Lorenzo. I want to welcome you all tonight. We have an insane show lined up here today, an absolutely great guest. And I'm going to start it off with our host first, and that's Executive Officer at VF-102 Diamondbacks, and that's Gerald Leakey, call sign Leakster. Good evening.
Hey, happy to be here, and really special show for me to have my good friend Mike Anderson, BC, here with us. BC and I spent a lot of good times together at the Reno air races, watching airplanes go around in circles, turning left, low to the ground, and going fast. And we're just probably the only two F-14 guys out there at the air races, so.
Probably.
It's fun for us to defend ourselves against all the F-16 and F-15 guys that we hang out with. And being Navy guys, we have to defend our honor there as well. So it's always a good time. Thanks for being here, Mike.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Absolutely awesome. And in the back seat, we have Siphon, Lieutenant Commander Eric McMullen, VF-41 Tomcatters.
Hey. Good to be here as always, and glad to have BC here.
And like Leakster said, our featured guest tonight, it's VF-41 Black Aces, Mike Anderson, call sign BC. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Lorenzo. Glad to be here.
Leakster Siphon, control wipeout is underway.
Oh man, it's so great to see you, BC. I'm looking forward to getting it together again more later in the year. But this is really cool because we get the chance to tell some more stories and reminisce about old times flying the F-14. So we were talking earlier. Tell us about how you got your path to get to the F-14.
Commissioned through AOCS in Pensacola, winged in Beeville, Texas in '92, and then selected F-14s at Oceana. A little bit of a delay getting started there. So they sent me TAD to the VC-6 at Norfolk. And then started at the RAG in January of '93. Finished up there November '93 to VF-41, and then in February of '97 went back to VF-101 as an instructor. Then separated from the Navy in May of '99.
When you were coming out of Beeville and you filling out your dream sheet, there was a lot of debate about who wanted to go fly single seat or multi-crew. When I got my wings, it was a whole plethora of aircraft to choose from the S3 to the Prowler and on and on. What was that like for you when you were filling out your dream sheet there? Were guys looking to fly the F-14, or were they say, oh, I only want to fly it if I can fly the D? Or what was that like for you?
For me, my first choice was F-14s East and F-14s West, and then I selected A6 East, A6 West in front of the F-18. My thought pattern at the time was that if I was going to be flying somewhere where people were shooting at me, I wouldn't mind having another set of eyes there to help me out.
And
we were glad to help out with that, because that's exactly the mindset that I had after flying. I flew light airplanes out of Southern California, and I would fly over the water at night occasionally, and that's pretty frightening the first time you fly over water at night. It's just a black hole, and And my instincts were telling me the same thing when I went through flight school, that I would rather have another crew member there, a co-pilot to help me from hurting myself, but also in combat, that second set of eyes is a big deal. So did that play out the way you thought it would, or what were you happy with that?
Yeah, I got my first choice, so I was really happy.
So after that, you go to VC6, and what did they do over there?
I was a ground or a division officer. So the thing about doing that, going through flight school, you don't really learn how to be a ground officer, and then till you get to your fleet squadron, then you're basically thrown into the fire. Whereas when I was there, I was able to learn how to do a ground job, and it was a little painful going through that experience, but I was able to benefit by learning from it, and then take that knowledge when I went into VF-41.
I saw the same thing coming out of AOCS. You know, these guys that came out of the academy, they had a lot of leadership courses, and we came out of AOCS with not a lot, just a little bit of academics, but not a lot of actual straight up leadership training. And then, of course, you go through 2 years of flight school, and then all of a sudden you're in a squadron, and they're saying, okay, you're the ground division officer, or you're this officer, charge of these group of people, and with almost no training whatsoever, you were put in this position. So it was kind of, if you didn't have a good mentor, or you didn't have somebody that would kind of help you out, it was a on the job training, if you will. And you're lucky you had that experience, I think.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to go to VF-43 after my orders came in, but I didn't want to stir the pot and ruffle any feathers. So I went ahead and so I heard the stories of my buddies that went to VF-43 getting backseat rides and everything, and so I was a little jealous of that. But again, I was able to learn from it and use that later. So.
What did VC6 do?
They had drones. Those were up at Pax River, but they also had remote control boats. They had that they would basically little ski boats, and then they also had ones that they had a boat out of Little Creek that would take the remote control boats out over the water, and they would tow a target, and the aircraft would come in and bomb it.
Huh.
I kind of vaguely remember about that, honestly. I remember dealing with them a little later than that, and I'm thinking, like, what is this really unique organization? Like, so was it a big squadron, or and how big? How
The detachments. So the main squadron was at NAS Norfolk, but they also had detachments at Pax River and Little Creek, and I believe one other place.
And how long were you there?
There for about 6 months.
Okay, long enough. You're like, okay, can I get to the rag, please?
So you were probably busy studying all the F-14 NATOPS manual and limitations while you were there, right? You weren't going to the Little Creek Officers Club or to out on the town.
Yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so Mike, when you go to VF-101 and you're at the RAG, what was the current state of the F-14 at that time? Were there still A's around, or were you guys mostly flying B's? And what was your expectation in the airplane?
We were flying A's and the B's. The D's were out on the West Coast, and so at some point during the training process, you would get selected for a B squadron, and they would try and fly you in the B models primarily. But if you were in an A guy, you could be flying the A or the B until you got to the CQ phase.
And so what was 41 at the time then?
We were A's.
Okay, so that was the big day when everyone were kind of like, certainly everybody's hoping to get a B model, I have to assume, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you end up flying mostly A's at the RAG, or did you get to fly the B much at all?
Yeah, we got I guess it just depended on what maintenance I had available. But it was mostly the A, but with a few, they would do I think it was 1 or 2 flights during the FAM phase where you were flying a B, but then during the rest of the syllabus, other than the CQ, then you could be doing an A or a B, just depending on what was available.
Wow. That's a significant difference in the way they land on the ship, right? I mean,
Oh,
the
yeah.
throttles, I found the 2 aircraft completely different for doing carrier landings, in my opinion.
Right. So that's why they during FCLPs and CQ, you were sticking with either A or B, whatever you were going to be ending up with.
So at that point, obviously the most of the avionics was common between the A's and the B, right? It was mostly just the engines that was significantly different at that point.
Correct.
So backseater wise, it almost didn't matter to them, but obviously you on the throttles is the big deal, right?
Right.
So and you weren't doing any air to ground training in the RAG, at least, right? It was all air to air.
No, we had air to ground.
You did have air to ground. Okay.
We did.
Was it? Go ahead.
You guys went to El Centro for detachment to do that, or how did you do your air to ground school?
Yeah, it was at El Centro.
But no lanterns, so you were still just dumb bombing it? Is that what it was?
Absolutely.
Ah, it's that weird phase. I don't know anything about this phase.
Yeah, it didn't exist when I went through the RAG either. So what was the syllabus like? Did you guys have fun, or was it?
It was fun, and then especially strafing. We got to go strafing out at El Centro as well. But just the Mark 76, the little practice bombs was all we were
Blue
doing.
Death. Blue Death above.
Were these like the training missions? Did you guys do low level ingress to drops, or they were just in the bombing pattern like the A4, or did you get to do close air support type stuff with timing, or what? How was the training?
No close air support. We weren't doing that, but it was low level to a time on target.
Okay. Huh. But all with just dumb bombs. So, but
they actually we did have some live ordnance. I don't remember. I think it's probably mostly the 500 pounders. But I do remember that we did that out at El Centro as well.
But they hadn't gotten the symbology upgrade in the well, the A didn't have the HUD, but I mean the B, even in the B HUD, they hadn't done the symbology upgrade yet. So what were you seeing air to ground wise in the delivery?
Now there was a I mean that's been 30 years since I've seen it, but there was symbology for us, the pipper to track and then to pickle it off.
You get a bomb fall line, which you can use for lateral deviation, and then you had a constantly computed impact point, basically a death dot type of bomb site. So I mean, it was fairly accurate because, as we all know, the dirty little secret of the F-14 was it came out of the factory ready to do air to ground stuff. It was kind of already in there. And most of that stuff worked pretty good in the old symbology. Even dropping high drag weapons. I did some level laydowns with that old symbology, and it was pretty darn good and pretty darn accurate. Of course, that's all INS dependent. So in the A's, we didn't have GPS. I don't know about you guys, BC, but there was
it tended to drift a little bit.
So you come out of the RAG and you go, how was the boat, by the way? How'd you guys do qual wise? Because that was the tough one when I went through the RAG. I want to say they had a 25% fail rate at carrier qualification in the F-14 at that time. But
yeah, I know we were better than that. I don't know the exact numbers, but the Japan was a possibility for me. But then I guess I didn't do as well, and so my roommate at the time was Chicken Bone Kevin Colling, and he ended up getting selected to go out to Japan.
So you would have liked to have, though?
I I wouldn't have minded.
Yeah. I mean, of course, obviously where you went was the best possible place to go. I mean, no
Absolutely.
one's that. And no one's ever going to say otherwise, right? So
And after hearing some of the stories of the guys that ended up in Japan, I'm really happy where I ended up.
Yeah. Yeah, it was varsity. Was the Independence still over there, or they changed boats? I can't
No,
remember.
I think it was.
Yeah. So you go to 41, and where was the squadron in the state of deployment?
So they didn't deploy. It was when they were matched up with VF-84. So VF-84 cruised on their own, and 41 stayed at home and did a lot of detachments.
That's weird.
During that time frame. So I show up when they were finishing all that. Then we started a workup, and that was on the Theodore Roosevelt.
Woo!
And we cruised in the spring and summer of '95 to the Med, Adriatic, and then the North Arabian. Came back from there, and then the Stennis got commissioned in I think it was December of '95. So in the first week or first month of '96, we instead of an Orange Air detachment down in Puerto Rico, we got to do Orange Air off the boat for one of the other Air Wings Comp 2X.
Oh, what a ripoff!
But it was fresh out of the getting commissioned, so it had that new carrier smell.
Yeah, really, no kidding.
And the attitude on there was, they were always asking, "Hey, what can we do for you?" Whereas some of the other carriers was a little not as a cooperative attitude. So
Stennis. Okay, so brand new non-skid. Everyone's still trying to figure out where the wardroom is, all that kind of stuff, right?
right. And then we Air Wing. We were CAG 8. We transitioned from the Roosevelt to the JFK. And so summer of '96, we did a 6-week North Atlantic, pulled into Dublin, Ireland, and Portsmouth, England, and then came back to started workups from there. And I rolled out of the squadron a month before they deployed again on the JFK.
Oh yeah. Were they paired up? Had 84 retired at that point, right? And so they were paired up with 14 at that point now.
14
Yeah, okay.
joined it at that time.
I knew that because I joined CAG 8 on that next cruise after the JFK. So
Okay.
the next TR cruise actually. So yeah, interesting. So joining a squadron that hadn't deployed in a while, had just done kind of exercise kind of stuff, right? Was that, did it have a different feel? I mean, I guess you only had the one experience, right? But I mean, did it not sort of feel like they had their sea legs under them, maybe is maybe a way to put it?
We did a lot of whenever there was a carrier available, that we would go out and do get traps. So I think that helped us.
Sure. But as a squadron,
that would be weird, because think about it. You don't even have the LSOs that are not that experienced either, right? Because they haven't even done a deployment. The experienced LSOs are gone. So you're kind of training yourselves basically during that period, I would imagine.
Right.
I just want to throw in there real quick. The exact area he's talking about, I have pictures at Oceana of his jets next to the hangar, and they have foil in the canopies, because for the most part, like he says, they're not going on cruise, so they're limited to what they're using and whatnot. And I actually have the pictures. I'll get them to Aaron to have him put them into the show, and it's the exact area he's talking about.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
So did you guys have any incidents? I mean, any issues with that?
No, I don't. We lost one aircraft on the middle of a cruise, but we'd had a full workup and half of cruise, so I don't think that was a result of not deploying earlier.
Right. So what happened with the airplane?
That one, they were, it was a day, ACM flight, and aircraft departed, couldn't recover. And DCAG, I think, was actually the wingman, and watched it go in. Both got out fine, and then
So it was a typical F-14A accident.
yeah,
Sadly.
yes. And so I got to go fly to Sigonella in a COD and pick up our new jet, bring it back, and that's the day that Scott O'Grady got shot down, and so guard frequency was just going crazy trying to locate him when we flew back to the Adriatic.
Oh yeah. Oh, so this is on deployment.
Oh yeah, that was on deployment.
Oh,
So
wow.
that airplane went into the Adriatic then?
Yes.
Okay. So it's sitting in the water with a bunch of Roman ships somewhere in the Adriatic. So,
Right.
But do you know that they snuff a motor? Was it an BFM
Cough.
blow an engine kind of thing, and then depart the airplane, or what did that look like?
I don't remember all the details. I mean, it was an A, obviously, because that was what our squadron was flying. But I think it was just BFM departed and was unable to recover.
And so the guys get back flying?
Yes.
Oh, good.
So they're fighting DCAG, so they felt like they had something to show. Yeah.
He was qualled in the Tomcat, and he was a Hornet guy by trade, but I don't remember which aircraft he was flying that day.
So did you have any personal experiences over there as far as getting into it with folks over there in Bosnia, or flying over the Adriatic?
Yeah, we did a lot of our time was in the Adriatic or over Bosnia, and the thing I remember, we'd be flying into country, do our mission, and they when we were exiting, they'd want us to fly supersonic over Sarajevo just to let them know that we were there. So that was a pretty cool thing. I was leading a 4-plane one time with 2 Tomcats, 2 Hornets, and we're doing our mission, and then the Hornets said that they were bingo because they were out of fuel. So kissed them off, and they departed to go back, and then the Tomcats continued on.
So another standard carrier mission from those days, because that was a pretty common theme in a lot of those missions.
Yeah, they were on ladder early, so they had to throttle back.
Yeah, and the ironic thing is they probably got gas and you didn't, coming off the catapult most of the time, right?
Yeah.
They topped off on the S3.
Yeah. Then the last 2 weeks that we were there was a bombing campaign. So VF-41 was actually the first F-14 squadron to drop a ordnance in combat.
Yeah.
And so I was there when that happened, and then we pulled out, and then the America came in. And,
in that incident, was that a pre-planned or was that a response?
No, it was. I'm not sure. It was pre-planned. I mean, they knew it. The campaign lasted for 2 weeks, but I don't know. I think it was a response to what was going on the ground at that time.
So you guys were pretty busy then.
Yeah, and we were dropping. We didn't have the lanterns then, so we'd have to a Hornet with lays, and we would be dropping the ordnance, and the laser would pick up from the Hornet.
Oh, nice.
That's pretty important. The buddy lasing.
Yeah.
So you guys must have been feeling pretty froggy about that, right? To be the first F-14s to drop bombs in combat like that.
Well, yeah, and then VF-41 was the first to have a shoot down in the 80s with one of the Libyans. So it was first to fight. They had some motto. First,
first to shoot, first to drop.
But It was good squadron to be in, and I'm glad I was.
Hmm. It was basically just a few years later when they did have Lantern in the Kosovo campaign, same place. That's probably I think probably, as I recall, a couple of the department heads who have been JOs with you we had done that same thing, and we're talking about it. I remember them talking about, like, this is so much better having Lantern.
Oh, yeah. It was
how much easier it was.
First to fight, first to strike. That was the motto
Mm.
that we had. Yeah, so I rolled out in 97, and so in 96 they started getting the Lantern pods,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, and with and also the MVGs, and so they were saving for those for the guys that were going on deployment. So I didn't get to play with any of those toys, but and then when they deployed in the spring of 97, they had the Lanterns and the MVGs to use.
That definitely changes the game. Honestly, I can't imagine all my time over Iraq without NVGs. That would just be scary.
Right.
It's like having.
I never flew with them, man.
Oh man,
it was awful.
As one of our GHs had said, one of our hinges had said, it's sort of like having a radar on your head. I mean, it's pretty Gucci. I mean, now of course, having the helmet in the Super Hornet and that kind of stuff, where you've got everything right inside your visor, is pretty amazing. But at the time, just being able to see out contacts at 100 something miles, just because they've got a little bit of light source on them, pretty amazing. What are the things on the ground too? Yeah, so I can understand how living it without it would be. I don't know. Again, I'm a D baby. What do I know? Everything was Gucci for us.
One of my when I was on a cruise, one of my Rios was a former A6BN, and so he borrowed a pair of goggles from the Hornet Squadron and took it up on the mission. And so about halfway through, he passed it up to me, and so I was able to look through it. And yeah, it was pretty amazing how much you could see.
Was that the single tube or the double?
It was a double.
Okay, yeah, good deal. Like the actual Andus 9s or whatever they're called together,
Yeah, we used them on the LSO platform one night when some of the Navy SEALs came up. Yeah, we had a couple of SEALs on the LSO platform, and they had these, targeting pointer, laser pens, invisible beam things,
Is it? Yeah.
And we had the MVGs on the LSO platform, watching guys come into land, and I was just like, "Are you kidding me? Why aren't we all flying with these all the time? I mean,
Right.
literally, they should be on 24. As soon as the sun goes down, we should be eating our cheeseburgers with these things down in the mess hall. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable that we don't have these. I mean, if you feel so, I think the F-16 accident rate went down by like 1/2 once they started using MVGs. I mean,
Wow.
they had so many. The situational awareness that it gives you is just dramatically different. And I'm glad you start thinking about the bad guys having them, and that really is not cool. It's a serious advantage.
Right.
It truly is. And honestly, I really can't imagine any of my night combat time without it. But there is a negative to it. I mean, having, the new design and where it's all kind of encased in the helmet, part of the helmet is a different story. But when it was, sitting here, like, on the front of my cat bill with nothing to counterbalance in the front, and then the back, and my pilot honks on a 6G turn, and all of a sudden, my neck was hurting for the rest of the month. I mean, that's no fun. And it only weighs, I don't know, 1.5 pounds, but just, so far out from center of gravity, it's enough.
What was it like when you were taking a trap?
You have to take them off. We had to, what was it? 20 minutes prior to recovery, 20 minutes prior to ramp time. You had to have them off.
Okay. You didn't just rotate them up. You had to actually
Take them off. They had to be in your bag. Yeah. In fact, the whole bracket and everything, because even the bracket weighed a decent amount. They didn't want any counterbalance on our head, basically. So, and you want to get the night
night vision back.
Yeah. Usually you dial them down. See, they weren't super bright, but it's enough that you want your pupils to get wide open again, and yeah, that's part of the process. But there were some guys, I think at least once or twice, when occasionally when they're trying to make a nice video for the fighter fling video,
Right, right.
When you've got it like you got your camera pointing through the NVG, and my co-piloting duties may or may not have gone out the window at the same time. I don't know. But yeah, take them off is basically the answer. So yeah, sorry you guys missed out on that.
Yeah. So after your tour, you're like, was the RAG your first choice, or what were you trying to do from there?
I looked at doing a foreign exchange tour, but there was nothing, no slots available at the time. So went to 101 to be an instructor. I was an LSO as well, so that was a great opportunity to bag a few extra traps on the CQ debts for the RAG.
Yeah. So you got traps on a bunch of boats, eh?
I looked it up. I got on 8 different carriers.
Whoa.
Wow.
That's significant.
What's your total trap count then?
I had 321 total, 227 day and 94 night.
Wow.
Oh, you missed the Night Centurion, man.
Yeah. I don't miss that, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, that's a patch I didn't want to get, and I almost got double Night Centurion.
Oh, did you? Wow.
Oh God, it was
on one boat.
Yes, it was terrible. I don't recommend it.
This is not the recommended tactic.
See, Leakster did a few more deployments than I did, so
it's all fun.
Yeah.
So you go to the RAG and you get to market your skills as a seasoned aviator. And how did that go? You know what I always imagined was that, when you're a pilot in a squadron and a fleet squadron, you kind of think you know a little bit about radar stuff. But I would imagine that when you're an instructor at the RAG and you have these new Rios in the back, you learned a lot more about the radar and how to use it.
right.
Is that true?
That is, and running intercepts, and whereas in the fleet you're basically an autopilot with your guy in the back running the intercept, whereas at the RAG you can't really do that.
Yeah, I mean they've had mid-airs because of stuff like that, right? I mean, so it's learning to fly an intercept. And it was funny, we were having a conversation just the other night, some of us, about supersonic intercepts. And I was, you guys did supersonic intercepts at the RAG, right?
I don't remember if we did or not.
It was a big thing in the fleet when I was there, and that was a couple years different from you guys, but we were always doing supersonic intercepts because we were talking about intercepting like MiG-25s and supersonic bombers and things like that. And I don't think people realize how difficult it is to do a supersonic intercept. And certainly something like an SR-71 that's, at 80,000 feet doing, Mach 3, you have zero chance of intercepting that airplane, literally zero in any fighter.
Yeah.
And the missile technology probably wouldn't, in my estimation, because you would have to have a straight on beak to beak, no shot, and you'd have to know they were coming, and you would have a very a very short period of time to pull the trigger. It's really difficult to do a supersonic on a guy that's just doing Mach 1.2 because you're going to go our rule of thumb was about 10% over. So if he's doing 1.2, you want to be doing 1.3 to 1.4, and you're trying to hook that intercept where you're trying to kind of join up on that target. It's nearly impossible. If you float the turn at all, they're gone, and you're never going to catch up to them.
You got a rather large turn radius when you're going supersonic as well.
Right.
Sure.
So if you don't build in the lateral separation so that you can make that turn, you're going to overshoot and they're going to be gone.
Right.
And if the target makes a 20-degree heading change, it complicates the problem, and you're going to miss them again. I mean, and then there's not enough gas in the world to chase them down. You're going to run out of gas in short order. So it's
right.
I think there's a lot of misunderstanding out there out in the world, and I thought it was interesting that even Lorenzo and the rest of us were having this conversation the other night about that. And there's a lot of people that don't really understand the physics behind it, in my perception.
Mm. Yeah, we talked about it. I remember in the RAG, we did actually, I think we did a series of simulators on supersonic intercepts. I seem to recall we did a bunch of them, not in the air, just in the simulator. And
less gas.
Well, for sure. and we actually had a decent sim too. So the DSIM was actually not bad. And I do recall, because you're doing the simulators in the RAG, you're not doing it with the instructors. We're doing with, the contract instructors and 2 RAG students. So, we're not talking either of us front seat or back seat or particularly experts in our jet yet, but we were able to execute them with some practice. But like you said, Leekster, it's the offset issue, right? So how much lat step do you have and how much are you going to lead it? I mean, you have to lead it by a good 20, 30 degrees sooner than on a forward quarter intercept, certainly, or if you're trying to take it to the merge. But if you're trying to convert on them and take them up to a rear intercept, stern intercept, yeah, you really gotta lead that way earlier. And I remember what the number, I can't remember, it's been too long but there was a round number that we would use as this is when you start leading sooner. At what speed? I don't remember what that was. I think it was like 0.9 or something like that. You start leading sooner, but I honestly don't remember. And so
yeah, you really have to put you're putting what you're doing is, you're heading in opposite directions, and then you have what's called lateral separation, so that you want to be able to turn around so that you end up behind this target in a weapons firing position. So when you're supersonic, because of the radius of turn, you have to increase that lat sep, and you have to start your turn long before the other aircraft gets there, because if you don't, it looks like that.
That was pretty good. Oh, that was nice. You practiced that, didn't you?
So it's crazy, and it feels very uncomfortable to point your nose in front of an airplane that you're expecting to end up behind when you're going Mach 1.4. And then you almost can't see them because your nose is in front of them. And the Rio is telling you, keep your turn in. And you're like, I don't like this at all. Belly up to an airplane at Mach 1.4, right? And we did a lot of those in the early 90s, because we were in all these weird places on the planet where you could go supersonic. So, and at night you really didn't have any other missions to do. So we would, on a night mission, we were on a training mission, we would just say, okay, we'll do the first intercept's going to be a supersonic intercept. And we'll just go out there and practice one and then do something else after that. But
we just call them high fast flyer generally. And I do recall, actually, now that I think about it, we did do some in the med because we had the space, like you said. It was nice to be able to have that space. And I seem to recall doing one on the 2004 cruise against the MiG-29s, which was interesting because, of course, they're not particularly fast. And they're a point defense fighter, right? So they can't really get out there too far because their tanks aren't huge, but they do present a different profile. And so that was kind of interesting. I would have liked to have done one on a MiG-25 sometime, but that's obviously not going to happen. So
yeah, and that's a good point. The MiG-25, which was the big Mac Daddy there for many years in the 80s and the 70s. And is still actually a pretty good threat. But I mean, those guys, they can get up and move. And when an airplane is doing those kind of speeds at 1.8,
2.3, 2.4,
your chances of catching them or being in the right exact position where you're going to be able to take a shot on them is going to be and if you do, I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but on those high speed intercepts, your weapons window of actually launching a missile at somebody was seconds, like a few seconds. You had 5 seconds to pull the trigger, or it wasn't gonna happen. I mean, it's crazy.
It always go ahead.
Is it fair to say that a lot of what you're describing right now with the intercept is you're an airborne platform and you're now performing the intercept? If you were DLI Alert 5 on the flight deck and you got the call for 55, 60,000 feet, Mach 2.4, would it be just flip the page on your magazine and just keep
No, I mean, you're gonna go. That was the interesting thing, is that on a lot of those alert launches, you had significant notice, because for whatever reason we had good intelligence, and they would say, hey, there's this guy is going to show up at this piece of sky probably at this time, and you would go out there, and sure enough, here comes this Russian bomber, right? They've been tracking this guy for hours. So occasionally you get fooled because you're off the coast of Iran or something like that, and they launch a couple F-4s and they don't catch it for some reason. Don't ask me how that happens, but it's happened. But most of the time it's like, hey, you knew they were out there. I ran on a couple Iranian F-4s here, and they just bugged out. As soon as the F-14 points the radar, you're basically shining a spotlight on them, and they're like, we don't like this, and they're just, they bug out, right? So, but on a high speed guy like that, for example, in Iraq, where this MiG-25 goes through this strike group that's coming in and takes out an F-18, that was just a leaker that nobody caught, and they ended up losing a guy, right? That was pretty scary. But the guys that did see the airplane, the eyewitness guys that were on the strike, that I talked to, were like, yeah, there was no doubt in our mind that was a MiG-25 by the size of the afterburners. It was just, and when he turned tail away, there was nobody was going to chase him. He's going too fast.
Lakeshore, what was the fastest you ever flew? Do you remember?
I never made it to Mach 2. I think I did 1.8 or something like that. But I always wanted to do. I knew guys that did. I never did.
I had 1.7, but I remember hearing the stories that if you hit 2.0, that the paint would melt off or burn off the nose cone, and the maintenance chiefs would chew you out when you came back.
Didn't happen to me.
So that's another kind of understood thing. That is true, that I saw airplanes that had that happen to it, but mostly when that happened was when you were down low, because the on the airplane, I believe, was 780 knots at sea level or something like that, indicating. And that's where you have your high Mach ram air temperature rise, and and the limitation, I believe, is based on the canopy, plexiglass on the side parts of the canopy. I can't say that for a fact, but I know that I did see guys that got down low and got up over 750 knots, and it would melt the paint. Kind of spooky.
That is kind of weird.
Those little tiny little metal fasteners that are holding all those plates on and everything. How are they doing?
Did you guys at BC? Did you guys fly with tanks on all the time? Pretty much all the time.
On cruise, yes.
Okay, but at home, no.
It depended on. I mean, sometimes we were. They would be on, but when getting ready for cruise, they would put them back on.
Oh, interesting. Same with you, Lisa?
Yeah, we had tanks on cruise, and then they would take them off when we were back on the beach a lot. Sometimes they would transfer them over from ship to ship. When we went to Desert Storm, they said, do not drop drop tanks
we need these
in a dogfight. Yeah, just unless you're think you're gonna die. And it was really kind of a bummer, because these F-15 guys were literally going in country and dropping them on I think El Tecadam, or one of those bases they were using as a dumping zone, and they were just pickling their tanks all the time. And it was they were like, we don't have any more of these. We don't even know if anybody's making them. If we could get them, so please don't drop your. I know one time one of my wingmen had a fuel transfer problem. One of the tanks wouldn't transfer, and he had to pickle them. And so I got to fly formation. I didn't get a picture of it, unfortunately. I would have loved to, but I did get to watch a guy pickle off the drops. And then another time on a fly off. This is hilarious. I had my dad on the ship. We were doing a Tiger cruise, and of course that's the end of deployment, coming home, and we went by Bermuda, and they put a bunch of dependents on and flew some people off. So my dad, who's an old pilot too, he's a good dude, and we're up on the Admiral's Bridge, and we're watching the fly off. So everyone's headed to the beach. I have to stay on the boat and ride it in with my dad to meet
That's
my
the thing.
family.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sacrifice, but so much fun being there with my dad. It's like one of the greatest moments, right? We're on the Admiral's Bridge. We're watching these airplanes that have been hangar queens that they've been using for parts, the whole cruise, that they have to reassemble and get them to fly somehow off the ship, right?
Somehow.
So we're standing there, and this Hornet or this Tomcat is on the Cat 1, and he goes trundling down the catapult, and right when he comes off the end, the weight off wheel switch, everything falls off the airplane. It jettisons everything.
I'm not taking it.
So these
I'm
drop
outta
tanks
here.
fall up, and all splash in the water right in front of the ship. And I'm like, uh-oh. and I hear one of the other dependents, there's the captain of the ship, the admiral, everybody's standing there, and I hear this guy, like two guys, was that supposed to happen?
Yes, it was. It's part of the air show. It's all part of the price of admission right here.
Yeah, did that on purpose.
No, I can hardly count on one hand. I can probably count on one hand the number of times I flew with no tanks. Because we basically always had them if we were doing a Pro B and Pro C. Other than that, that's the only time they came off, basically. So I don't know, probably more than one hand, but not a whole lot of times. I mean, I basically just always calculated you got 20,000 pounds of gas. I can't imagine. It's almost hard to imagine having, what was it, 16.2? Is that what it was without tanks?
Yeah. What was that like at the rag? You guys didn't have drops on those.
No.
We did.
Rag, right?
We did.
Oh, you did? We didn't have one. We were there, I don't think.
Yeah.
What was your opinion on that? I don't have enough experience without drops. I always felt pretty much flew the same with them without them. But what did you think? I mean, did you know? Was it noticeable to you, BC?
A little, yeah. I mean, there's a little more drag out there, but you're able to use your left hand a little more generous than you can without them.
On the A, certainly.
Yeah, on the A.
Well, that was the pure limitation on the speed for us. We never, other than the couple of times we flew without them, we never went above 1.6. I think it was 1.65 with the tanks on. I forget, something like that. So
I don't remember any limitation, and I don't remember it stopping.
maybe it was a NATO's provision. I don't know. Anyway, we were always basically below 1.6, other than those times we flew with it off, and that's the one time I went 2.1. So
Wow. Yeah, that's fast. No, I never.
That was pretty awesome. We had to make sure we were pointed away from Virginia Beach at that point.
Right. Yeah, good call. Yeah, but you could end up all the way in Europe if you don't turn around soon enough. Jeez.
Yeah, we basically just climbed way up, pointed it a little bit over, tipped it a little bit over, and just plugged them in as long as we could get down. And yeah, there it is, 2.1. Look at that.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It was a jet that had just done a pro, and this is towards the end of the Tomcat's life. I mean, we were the only squadron in town at that point, so literally. And
did you go back in time? Did you go back and give
yeah,
yourself
actually,
two aboves?
we saw Khan, we saw Captain Kirk. We did a little thing around the sun. Yeah, all that. Yeah, it was good.
So BC, you're at the rag, and what was your takeaway from that? A lot of Key West jets, or how was it to be a rag instructor and teach guys how to fly the F-14? And you were teaching them how to land on the carrier, probably one of the most challenging things you can do.
Yeah, it was a great time to be there. A lot of Key West, a lot of El Centro, and then CQ det. So I really enjoyed it. The thing about people learning to fly the F-14 that aren't realizing about the F-14 is that there are no flight controls in the back seat. So your first two flights, you would have an instructor pilot in the back seat to coach you through. So I did that several times. But the thing about that is you're the one that gives the student the check ride in the simulator before going out.
Right.
Yeah.
You're gonna trust this guy with your life? Come on, man.
Yeah. So I got to I counted up I think 12 times that I rode in the back seat of the F-14. So.
Little Rio appreciation, circuit breaker appreciation.
Absolutely.
Did they make you put glasses on before you did that?
Hey, I got a note. The two guys in this recording are wearing glasses. Interesting. Anyway, but
Aside
yes,
from
we
you had
appreciate you.
contacts.
Yeah. No, I had the surgery actually. So going out to the boat with a junior pilot, did you find that to be an edifying experience? I mean, like teaching guys to do what they really were going to do on the boat.
I thought it was rewarding. I mean, it wasn't some of the instructor Rios. They I think especially when you're doing the first night traps, that's got to be really be nervous about hey, is this guy going to actually be able to do it? But they spent a lot of time with them doing the FCLPs down at Fentress Field at Oceana. And so you've been waving them for the previous month, so you know guys their trends on what they're going to do, and usually some of those trends will show up out at the boat, and then occasionally you'd get one that throws some different trends at you, and you just got to be ready for it and have your hand on the pickle ready to wave them off if they're not in the right position to land safely on the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And do you guys have mostly? I mean, how did it go when you were there? Pretty safe, or did you when you were at the RAG? You have a good safety record? Or?
Yeah, there were no incidents. I don't remember the pass fail rate, but there was no incidents when I was there. So thankfully.
Mm-hmm. So when you finished up your time at the RAG there, and you're like, time to move on and do something else with my life. Did you intentionally seek out flying jobs after that? I guess we haven't said specifically, but you're an airline pilot now.
Yeah. So I went to work for U.S. Airways, flying the 737, then eventually the Airbus.
Who? You cut out for a second. Who'd you go to work for?
U.S. Airways.
Oh, U.S. Airways. Okay.
Yeah. And then flying the 737 and the Airbus 320, and then was furloughed after 9/11. So furloughed in January of 02, and then started with JetBlue in May of 02.
Which was fortuitous timing, right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, at the time that they were one of the only ones hiring, so it was good for me. But I've been with them for 21 years now.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. Do you miss dynamic flying?
I do, but if it was,
I mean, I'm going to go ahead and make an assumption. You're not doing dynamic flying with JetBlue, please.
Correct. Yeah, it's pretty straight and level.
Mm-hmm.
Got the tray table out so I can enjoy my meal.
There you go.
Yeah. If I need to use the lavatory, I just call to the back, and they set it up for me where I'm not using a piddle pack like in the Tomcat. So
right.
Which I mean, especially if you're flying over the water in the wintertime, you got that dry suit on. That was a very challenging task to accomplish.
Always tried to make sure we were empty before putting on the dry suit as best as possible.
Yeah. And then when you land, your body knows how long it takes to get to the restroom. It doesn't really know how long it takes to get that dry suit off. So
right.
Yeah, it's the truth, man. Yeah, and I to get in the night stack at the ship, and I always had to go right then.
Right then.
And I was like, oh gosh, the last thing I want to do is be distracted while I'm trying to fly the ball at night.
That extra pressure to make this trap happen.
Yeah.
This one's gonna happen.
See guys land and go running out of their airplane.
And boss, can I get a parking spot in the 6 Black Peas?
There was when we were on deployment, one of our F-18 XOs, he needed to have an emergency pull forward for a physiological episode, and then at some point he told the boss, "Say, never mind."
Never.
So, yeah.
Disregard.
Taken care of.
Well, so tell me, I guess we're probably going to need to wrap it up here in a minute, but tell me, like, what is your favorite memory of the Tomcat?
It was a fun aircraft to fly. It was a big aircraft, but I really enjoyed flying it. The A model, not quite as didn't have as many bells and whistles as you enjoyed on the DE or those that flew the B, but I got to see some amazing places, got to do some amazing things, and more importantly, got to fly with some amazing crew members. So I really enjoyed it.
Did you get to fight the Air Force much? F-15s or any of those guys?
We went to Seymour Johnson occasionally. We would go down over was it Dare County, those ranges, and do the 2-seat model, but then go against the any 16s or the single seat 15s.
Yeah. Very cool, man. Well,
Yeah.
those are the same I have. Big airplane, fast, fun to take to air shows, great dogfighter.
The autopilot wasn't too. We going across country, and you'd put on the altitude hold, and then eventually it started doing an oscillation to the point that it would kick off, or the heading hold. You'd be going along, and you'd start getting a little drift in there, so you just use your knee to hold up against the stick to hold it going straight and level. So, but yeah, it was fun to fly.
Well, we're very thankful to be able to have you aboard for our show today. Thank you much for joining us.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, man. It sounds like you had a good time with it. It's been kind of a unique time when you really got to see it transition from what it was to what it became.
Right.
You saw that happening right under your nose, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been fun to fly with the Lantern and the MBGs, but yeah, I got to see the beginning of that.
Well, certainly you trained them in the RAG. Those guys went on to do what became our bread and butter within a very short number of years. Honestly, coming up right out of the RAG when you were training them, they were going to do it. So pretty awesome.
But,
Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Well, thanks, Mike. I look forward to seeing you at Reno, brother.
I'll be there.
One more time, right?
One more time. Last time.
I can only imagine that's going to be quite the party.
Awesome show, guys. Absolutely awesome show. I just want to throw a few producers' notes in there. When we were talking about bombing with the F-14, the United States Marine Corps actually wrote the bombing software for the Tomcat. Grumman wrote it initially, but it would not really put bombs on target. But when the Marines wanted to buy it in the 70s, they had no choice but to drop bombs. So they had to dial the software in, and they exclusively did it themselves at Miramar with a couple of VF-124 birds. And then they walked away from it. Not by choice. The guys who set up the software were all about the airplane, but, you know, the top level Marines said no to it. So Navy did get left with a thank you and off to the sunset.
That's good to know. I had no idea.
And then one other thing I want to throw out there. Tulsa Air and Space Museum, VF-41 Black Aces F-14A Tomcat. We just saw it on our road trip and stopped there. Absolutely amazing place, amazing airplane. I cannot recommend it enough to the community. You need to go there. You need to see it. More importantly, point to that name on the nose that says Mike Anderson.
Yeah,
it's a legend, and you just heard him. His name is on that jet.
On that jet. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely awesome. Again, thank you guys. I appreciate everything. And for everyone out there, you can find the shows on YouTube, Discord. You can find us on Facebook at F-14 Tomcat Radio Show. Also on Instagram at F-14 Tomcat. You can email us at F14Cowerton@gmail.com. And again, we thank you for everything. And you can support the show. Check out our merch at goldleaderatx.com. We got a lot of cool stuff going on. The whole Have a Bandit Day series patch line just dropped, and Aaron's doing a great job out there with that. And shout out to him. And again, you guys were incredible tonight. We learned a lot, and it was absolutely awesome, man. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you. Appreciate it.